Tomorrow on Storytelling Hour, which is weekly on Wednesdays, miércoles, Mercury's Day at 11:11 a.m. Pacific, I will be speaking about Santa's sleigh and how I've come to see it as the asterism of stars that most of us call the Big Dipper. And how that sleigh points to the North Pole, where Santa resides, and is pulled every night all the way around the globe by Rudolph the red-nosed star called Arcturus. I'll be speaking a little bit also about the sacred astronomy of other seasonal imagery like the menorah and the dreidel and the Christ and the birth of the light and such. So it's something I love to do every year. And at this time, my dream of what I call the Christmas mystery school is wanting to actualize, because of course we have a baby at home, baby Maya, who yesterday turned 6 months old. Or did that happen like 20 days ago? So this is a thing I love to speak about often. I'm not going to be able to look at you again because, as you can see, I'm driving. But just what in the heavens is a month? 6 months old, really 6 sunts. Okay, let me explain. The day, much easier to define from an astronomical point of view. The solar day, we could measure from sunrise to sunrise. And this, at least according to ball Earth theory, is due to Earth rotating on our axis, right? One earthly rotation with respect to the sun is a solar day. By the way, sunrise to sunrise, kind of a tricky thing because of refraction and your local topography and more. So typically the measurement for the solar day is the period between consecutive sun reach, as I like to call it. We used to call this noon. Now we have to call it local apparent solar noon, because noon has become this 12 p.m. thing on a clock, right? But every day the sun reaches its height, its daily height. And at that time, the shadow is shortest and it points along the meridian. So like where I live in California, the sun souths every day at midday, exactly south, and therefore the midday shadow is exactly north. So I can measure the shadows that the sun casts throughout the course of a day, like from a stick in the ground, which we could call a gnomon, and I could just carve the direction of the shortest daily shadow into the stone. It's going to be on the meridian, which is a north-south line, no matter where you are experiencing the sun from the globe. And once I've got that meridian line drawn into the ground, I can just know that it is true solar noon or sun reach every day when the sun is on that line, right? This is why it's really imperative to align your sundial with the cardinal directions. All right, so the solar day, a pretty easy thing to track, an incredible energetic experience of yin and yang, right? From sunrise to sunreach to sunrest to sunroots, down beneath the ground in the middle of the night. The day. The year is another thing that is somewhat simple to define astronomically, right? We experience this, of course, by the changing of the seasons. Now, that can be somewhat confusing, since of course in this two hemisphere experience on Earth, winter solstice for one half of the globe is summer solstice for the other. And it's why I love to teach this time that we are coming to now, when the sun ingresses tropical Capricorn, shining above the Tropic of Capricorn. I like to call this Southstice, because whether you live north or south of the equator, when sun ingresses tropical Capricorn, sun rises most south of east and sets most south of west. Now, if you live in the southern hemisphere, that means very long days, because the sun has to move from southeast to north to southwest during the daylight hours. In the northern hemisphere, very short days, because the sun will move from southeast to southwest. There are places on Earth, specifically north of the Arctic Circle, that will not experience sunrise at all when sun ingresses tropical Capricorn and is so far from the Arctic Circle at its southern bounds, which are the Tropic of Capricorn. Tropics comes from the Greek tropikos, which means turn around. Solstice means the sun stops. Stops doing what? Well, when the sun ingresses tropical Capricorn, that means it's been moving south from the Tropic of Cancer for 6 months, crossing the equator at equinox time. And then the sun stops, solstice, turns around, tropikos, and slowly begins moving north for 6 months. It will cross the equator at equinox, that's the sun ingressing 0 Aries, reach its northern bound at the Tropic of Cancer when it ingresses tropical Cancer, right? I live in California. When the sun's at Tropic of Capricorn, the southern bounds, that's the furthest the sun can ever get from me, and that means the sun appears to be very low in the sky. So at this time of Southstice, the sun at its southern bounds, the south pole of Earth leaning towards the sun in our annual revolution about that light, this means at midday, at true solar noon, it will be the longest midday shadow of the year for me, because it's the lowest midday sun. The opposite is true if you live in Peru. When the sun ingresses tropical Capricorn, the southern bounds are closest to you, right? If you're in the southern hemisphere. And therefore, just like a building appears to be tall when we walk near it, as the sun walks near you, the sun appears to be tall or high in your sky. And with the highest midday sun of the year, summer solstice, it's the shortest midday shadow of the year. So we can use the sundial to tell us when it is midday, shortest shadow of the day, and then we can measure that shortest daily shadow and the length of it to know where we are in the year, right? The longest midday shadow of the year is winter solstice. The shortest midday shadow of the year is summer solstice. Now, we have records of timekeeping like this all the way back to Babylon. I mean, many will look to the Mula Pin, which is perhaps the oldest proto-zodiac that we are aware of. I mean, arguments can be made from China and India and different lunar mansion traditions, and I think we're going to find these things all over the world. But the Mula Pin, we have much written about, and while they were certainly looking at, constellational signs, if you will, sidereal of the star-based signs, they were also very interested in which signs were high, which signs were low, and that's a tropical thing. And they were measuring the tropical year through the length of the shadow. So I often hear sidereal astrologers who use stars to define the signs, saying that the oldest timekeeping that we are aware of is all like far away star based, and that's just not true. The way that we experience time, really first and foremost, has everything to do with Earth and Sun. And simple definitions, again: solar day, rotating once on her axis with respect to the Sun; solar year, or annual orbit of the Sun. Now we could get into sidereal days, sidereal years, but the question here is, what in the heavens is a month? All right, because it's a little trickier to define. A week is not, right? The current system that we use suggests that a week is 7 days. Why? Maybe because of the 7 visible lights, the luminaries, sun and moon, and the 5 visible planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Each have a day of the week named for them, like today, Tuesday is Mars's day, tomorrow, Wednesday, Miércoles, Mercury's day, etc. And that's something that goes way back. So maybe that's where 7 comes from. Maybe it comes from the truth that 7 days is about a quarter of a month. Okay, well, what in the heavens is a month? Many answers to that question. There is no moon cycle that is precisely 28 days. People teach that all the time. It is just ignorant. So be careful when you hear star students teaching you that the moon cycle is 28 days. Run away, okay? My baby, again, we say, at least according to the calendar, turned 6 months old yesterday because she was born on June 16th, right? June, the 6th month of the year, and so we just add 6 months to get to the 12th month of the year, that one that's named for the number 10, December. Let's not go there right now. Besides, I want to share with you the truth that while the Gregorian calendar, which of course has Julian roots, is kind of a mess, it might be less of a mess than you've been led to believe. So let's go there. A sign is an equal division of earthly sky. In tropical astrology, the signs are not configured to constellations. They are not equal divisions that are aligned to any particular star, which is what a sidereal zodiac does. In tropical astrology, they are aligned to Gaia's spine, to the sword of our stone, to the world tree, as I poetically know, Earth's rotational axis, which defines the cardinal directions. Consider a spinning Earth. The plane of that daily rotation is the equator, and perpendicular to the equator, we have the rotational axis, which emanates from the heart of our planet, passes through the terrestrial poles, south and north at Santa's place, and then points to the celestial poles in the sky, which we experience on Earth as the center of the heavenly spin. During the night, it's the center that you can see all the stars spinning about. And during the day, it's that same center that we experience our star, sun, spinning about, right? And it literally defines the true north and south directions. So the plane of the day is the equator. The plane of the year is the ecliptic. That's described by Earth's annual orbit about the sun. From our point of view, sun's orbit about us. The equator and the ecliptic are not the same because of Earth's tilt, right? In our day and age, Earth's tilt about 23.5 degrees. 23.4 is actually closer, but if you look at 23.4 this way, that means this way it's 66.6, and nobody wants to say that number. And I can't believe I don't hear astrologers and astronomers speaking about this more often, but that 23.4 degree tilt means that the Tropic of Cancer is 23.4 degrees north of Earth's equator. The Tropic of Capricorn, 23.4 degrees south of Earth's equator. And the Arctic circles are 66.6 degrees north and south of Earth's equator. Earth's equator, the plane of the day. The ecliptic, the plane of the year. And tropical astronomy is concerned with the cardinal directions, with Gaia's spine, our rotational axis, and with the places where the plane of the year, the ecliptic, crosses the plane of the day. These are the equinox points. So it's not about constellations far away. It's not about any particular star. It's simply about Gaia's spine, the sword of our stone, the world tree, Earth's rotational axis, and the cardinal directions that that axis describes. So the cardinal cusps of the tropical zodiac are aligned to Earth's cardinal directions, right? And so every year when cardinal south, that's Earth's south pole, is leaning towards the sun, and therefore maximum light southern hemisphere summer solstice, maximum shadow northern hemisphere winter solstice, regardless globally southstice, you see. At that point the sun is at its southern bounds. That's the Tropic of Capricorn. When the sun ingresses tropical Capricorn, the sun shines directly above the Tropic of Capricorn. Do you see the astronomy there? The earth astronomy, the earth astrology. And zero Capricorn, that cardinal cusp, is south. Earth's south pole leans towards zero tropical Capricorn in every moment forever. In one moment each orbit, the sun visits that place, right? The moon, if you use the model, and it's okay for us to now, gets around the Earth every 27.3 days. This is called a tropical month. So every month the moon will ingress tropical Capricorn. Now, because the moon is not tied to the sun's path, this does not mean that the moon will be above Earth's Tropic of Capricorn when moon ingresses tropical Capricorn. But regardless, every tropical month, the moon getting around our planet will be on the southern side, that place towards which Earth's south pole leans. And about 2 weeks later, the moon will be where Earth's north pole leans, which of course is zero Cancer, right? That place that moon traditionally is said to call home. So the moon goes home to Earth Cancer every 27.321 days. That's a tropical month. And if you look at the moon on your birth chart, you will see that you have a lunar return every 27.321 days on average. Okay, some lunations are faster or longer. I should say slower or longer. Some are faster and shorter, but the average tropical or Earth orbit by the moon is 27.321 days. Now we need to go deeper into decimal points to differentiate between the tropical month, Earth orbiting the Earth moon orbiting the Earth with respect to Earth's cardinal directions with our rotational axis. The difference between that and a sidereal month, which will be like moon's consecutive alignments to a particular star in our sky, say like Regulus, the heart of the lion, 27.321 days. You got to get into deeper decimal points to see the difference between the tropical month and the sidereal month. 27.3 or 27 and about a third days is a good number to remember for those periods. All right. Well, 27.3 times 4 is about 164 days. All right. So Maya, my daughter, was born with the moon aligned to the great, beautiful blue goddess star Spica, Chitra, the shaft of wheat that the priestess of the heavens holds. One of my favorite stars. And so every month when I see moon aligning with Spica, I know that Maya is having a sidereal and a tropical lunar return. And she had 6 of those by the time she reached about 164 days old. Okay. Well, that, of course, is short of 24 weeks. Why 24 weeks? Because if we say a month is 4 weeks long, then of course 6 months would be 6 times 4 or 24 weeks. And that's a period of, what is 24 times 6? 100 and... Let's see if I'm able to talk to my robot friend while we do this. For weeks, how many days is that? That's 24 times 7, right? Wake up, kid. So that's 168 days. So 4 moon orbits of the Earth, if we think of that as a month, that's a tropical month or a sidereal month. They're very slightly different because of precession. That's the last I'm going to go there right now. That's about 164 days where 6 months, if we consider a month to be 4 weeks, is 168 days. Okay, well, neither of those are half a year. So most of us would consider 6 months to be half a year. And the idea is we have 12 months in a calendar. All right, but do we? Because even in the name month, it feels like it should have something to do with the moon. Is it the moon getting around the Earth? That's sidereal month or tropical month we just described. Well, that's 27.3 days long. There's 13 and a third of those in a year. Where's the 12 come from? Well, most of us think about months, like the lunar cycle, really as the Earth, Moon, Sun cycle, the way that the moon reflects sunlight to earthly eyes. And this is more than just a phase, right? But it is about the phase, right? So it's about every 29 and a half days, 29.53059 days on average. That's the period of the so-called lunation or synodic month, where synod means meeting. So about every 29 and a half days, the moon meets the sun in Earth's sky for new moon, right? Earth, moon, sun. Of course, we don't see the moon at that time unless you happen to be on Earth where you're experiencing the shadow of a lunar eclipse. But the charts help, and so does the maths. And we look at old lunar calendars, and many of them persist. Chinese lunar calendar, the Hebrew calendar, which comes from the Akkadian, which came from the Babylonian, and the way they keep their months tuned to the phases of the moon is you alternate between days of 30 and 29. that keeps that average 29.5-day pace. Now, an issue with that is that 12 lunations, 12 times 29.5, is only 354 days. And so that's not quite a year, right? There's about 12 and a third lunations per year. So if you're keeping a solely lunar calendar and you want to synchronize it with the seasons because you like things like food and survival, you need a system of leap months or intercalary months, and it's kind of a tricky thing. And I'm just going to leave that there for now. But we're going to see something about alternating between periods when we get back to the Gregorian thing in a bit. Anyway, if you look at 12 lunations, that's about 354 days. And half of that is what? There's 177 days. Okay, so now we have a few options. Perhaps my baby Maya turned 6 months old around 164 days old because it's that amount of time required for the moon to get around the Earth 6 times. Maybe a month is a moon orbit of the Earth with respect to Gaia's spine, our rotational axis and the cardinal directions, or with respect to a faraway star. One's a tropical month, the other's a sidereal month. Regardless, they're both periods of like 27.321 days on average, and 6 of those is about 164 days. So maybe Maya turns 6 months old at 164 days. Maybe a month is a period of 4 weeks or 28 days, even though the moon doesn't have any 28-day cycles. If a month is 4 weeks, then 24 weeks or 6 months is 168 days. So maybe Maya turned 6 months old at 128 days. Well, it's been a couple weeks since then. So why would I say she's turned 6 months old now? And why would the calendar seem to agree? Because she was born on June 16th and yesterday was December 16th, 6 months later, according to the calendar. And actually, just about half of a solar year. Her true solar return, solar opposition from a tropical point of view was in like the AM hours. So let's just speak about a solar opposition we're all about to experience, and it's solstice, right? So how long has it been since northstice, or when Earth's north pole leaned towards the sun? Of course, that's summer solstice for the northern hemisphere, winter solstice for the southern hemisphere. How long between that time, sun ingressing tropical Cancer and sun ingressing tropical Capricorn? And the answer is like 6 months, like June 21st-ish to December 21st-ish. And we have to say ish because of the weird system of leap days that we use, and on I could go. And then also, very interestingly, the seasons are not equal lengths of time. So I'm going to use between equinox and solstice, between solstice and equinox, between equinox and solstice, between that solstice and equinox, to describe seasons. Or let me say, I'll speak directionally because the solstice and equinoxes are directional, between southstice and east equinox, between east equinox and northstice, between northstice and west equinox, between west equinox and southstice. Those are not equal periods of time. This has long riddled the astronomers, and actually looking at some of the ancient solutions to the problem before there was an awareness of the heliocentric or sun-centered nature of the solar system and the truth that orbits are not circular but elliptical. They had to come up with all sorts of interesting models and maths to try to deal with the problem that the 4 seasons are not of equal length. Now, between the solstices, the 6 months from like June 21st to December 21st are rather close to half of a year. And Maya was born very close to solstice. Maya was born on June 16th, just 5 days before the Northstice, the June solstice, the Cancer solstice this year. And so Maya's like half birthday on the calendar is pretty close to half of a year in days. That's not true for me. And before I finish that thread, let me first just go back to another definition of 6 months, which would be half of a year. Okay, well, there's 365 and about a quarter of a days in a year. I'm going to use 366, the number of days in a leap year, to do the math, because it's much easier to divide 366 in half. All right, so 366 day year would imply that half of a year is 183 days. All right, Maya was born on June 16th. Yesterday was December 16th. And in fact, December 16th is 183 days from June 16th. So half of a year. And so for Maya, the Gregorian calendar, which would suggest to us that there are 6 months or half of a year between June 16th and December 16th, is pretty accurate. But it's a period really that I like to call 6 sunths. Okay, so what is a sunth? And this will have me rewind or retrograde back to a place I was earlier and did not complete, which is that a sign is an equal division of space. Again, the ecliptic is Earth's orbital path about the sun. So from Earth's point of view, we experience that as the sun getting about us, right? Either way, Earth's North Pole leaning to the sun once a year, that's the sun ingressing tropical Cancer, and on the other side of the year, the sun ingressing tropical Capricorn, right? Well, if we take that apparent circle of the sun's motion through the constellations and the signs, which are different things, and then divide it into 12 equal slices, and we can align it to Earth's pole, right? So I can say, okay, the South Pole is leaning towards 0 Capricorn. Let's take the 360-degree circle of the sun's apparent path and divide that into 12 equal slices of 30 degrees each. Welcome to the 12 equal 30-degree signs of the tropical zodiac. Those are not equal divisions of time. They are equal divisions of space. What is the amount of time it takes for the sun to move through a sign? About a month, right? We say that the sun moves about 1 degree per day, and that means about 30 days for 30 degrees or one sign. That's not quite the average though, right? Because that would imply a 360-day year. And we know that year is more like 365. Okay, 365 days and a quarter. Okay, 365.242199. But who's counting? We are, if we want to deal with these strange problems like what in the heavens is a month? Now, I would suggest a better term for the sun's travel through a sign is a sunth. And an average sunth we can find simply by dividing the year of 365.24 days by 12 signs. And when you do, you will find the average time it takes for the sun to move through a 30-degree slice or a sign of his path is 30.44 days, about 30 and a half days. Can you see why the Gregorian calendar alternates between months of 30 and 31? Doing so approximates that 30.44 day average pace. Because Julius and Augustus both needed months of 31 days back to back, things get a little interesting. You have to do something strange to February, where that 28 days or 4 weeks of February is kind of close to the 27.3 day sidereal and tropical months, and the leap years giving us 29 days is kind of close to the 29 and a half day synodic month or lunation, right? So maybe there's a little bit of a throwback involved there. It's hard to say. I kind of actually have learned to embrace this alternation between 30 and 31, though I would do it differently. So anyway, a sunth. In 6 sunths, one way we could do that for we astrologers is to simply look at the solar returns. So when the sun returns to the same degree of the zodiac where it was at the time of our birth, and the solar opposition. So when the sun is exactly opposite. Now, Maya was born with the sun around, 26 degrees tropical Gemini. And now the sun is at 26 degrees tropical Sagittarius. So solar opposition. And for Maya, that happens right around 183 days or a half of a solar year. For me, that's not true. Why? Because I'm born in October 24th specifically, but because of where I was born in the system of leap years, I more often have solar return on October 23rd than on October 24th, all right? Either way, I mean, let's say October 24th, the calendar would suggest that 4 months later is April 24th. However, I was born with the sun at 1 degree Scorpio, and the sun gets to 1 degrees Taurus on the opposite side, typically around April 20th. 420, bro. And so you can see for me, the time between my solar return and solar opposition is shorter than the time between my solar opposition and subsequent solar return. Why? Because the Earth is closest to the sun around January 1st. And therefore, at that time, Earth is moving fastest in our orbit. And therefore, at that time, sun is apparently moving fastest day by day through our zodiac. We are closest to the sun perihelion every year in our day and age around January 1st on the Gregorian calendar. And we are furthest from the sun every year around July 4th. Far from sun, aphelion means slow Earth, means slow sun through our zodiac, okay? So because I'm born in October, between my solar returns in October and my solar oppositions in April, the sun is moving fastest, right? And so I have a shorter period between solar return and solar opposition than Maya does. Between Maya's solar returns, she hasn't had one yet, right? She'll get her first one next June, next Gemini season. And solar oppositions, which is now, the sun is moving at its average speed, right? So she's born when the sun is particularly slow, right? But at her solar opposition, now, sun in Sagittarius, the sun is moving particularly fast. And that, therefore, the midpoint for Maya when she's a few months old, around the west equinox time, sun ingressing Libra, or sun in late Virgo, more specifically for her sun square sun transit, the sun's moving around average speed. So since she has the average in between solar return and solar opposition, and the other average between solar opposition and solar return, her half years will be about equal to half a year. Where for me, my half year between solar return and solar opposition is, I think 3 to 4 days less than the 183 day half a year, where the other half for me between solar opposition and solar return will be like 3 days more than the 183 day half a year. So hopefully I've adequately confused you here. But just to review, we've actually offered a few different images for a month. I think the one that is least true is a month is 4 weeks of 7 days each, or 28 days. Because the moon does not 28. The moon does 27.3. That's moon getting around the Earth. And whether we do that with respect to Earth's pole, the tropical month, or with a faraway star, the sidereal month, that's a period of about 27.321 days. 6 of those, 164 days about, 6 periods of 4 weeks, or 24 weeks, about 168 days. Now, a half of a year, we just take 366 days and divide by 2, is about 183 days. And in Maya's case, from her birthday, June 16th, to half a year Gregorian on December 16th, it was, in fact, a period of 183 days. And it was also described on the chart between her birth date and her first solar opposition. That won't be true for all of us. It depends where you are born in the elliptical dance of earth matter about sun spirit. Now, there are other months, the draconic month, the anomalistic month, but I think you've had enough now. I would encourage you to check out the article for month at Wikipedia. It's a resource I don't always like to recommend, but it is one I use frequently. I wonder if you do too. The article for month there is pretty interesting. I don't believe they get into the idea of a sunth, certainly not by that name. I'm sure I'm not the first to have spoken it, but I don't know. I first heard it with my ears and my voice, I guess, and it's one I encourage you to do. And again, that would just be the length of time it takes for sun to move through a sign. And just know that the sun actually gets through Sagittarius and Capricorn much more quickly than he does through Gemini and Cancer, because orbits are not circles, they are ellipses. And I think we've ellipsed back to where we began. Happy half birthday, Maya. I love you, baby. See you in space, friends.